Hi. So in this next shortened series of videos, what I'm going to do is going to go through the very basics of working with watercolor. And the first thing I think I will uh, need to address is the different kinds of watercolor that you're going to be encountering. So if you go to the art supply store and you say, I need some watercolors, you're going to find that there's a lot of different formats of watercolor that you can choose from. The first that I'm going to talk about are the tube watercolors, and they're going to look like this. Generally, they're going to be smaller tubes than you would find with an acrylic paint because the pigment goes a long way. You add a lot of water to it to make it work. Now, these are terrific. The pigments are great. You have a lot of control over the opacity or transparency of the paint. They're not my favorite because they're not very convenient. If I get this, I've got to open it up, squirt some out onto my palette like this, and then I can paint with it, of course. But I'll have to put all the different colors around here. And I'll paint with it like this and mix it up with the water to create just the tone that I'm looking for, the value or the mixture. But then when I'm all done, I'm left with this palette. I can't get that paint back inside of here, so I've got to figure out something to do with this. Maybe I'll put it off to the side, let it all dry up, and then I can put water into it, whatever. Again, it's just not all that convenient, and I can't move it around nearly as easily because I've got this wet palette to be carrying around. The form that I really prefer are these cake or tray watercolors. Now these are super convenient, and I can take these anywhere and they're going to work just beautifully. So with these, what we have are all these different colors of pigment, and this is in a plastic case. If I open this up, you're going to see all my different cakes of dry pigment here now. Whereas in the tube they're wet, here they're dry. So then I can take a wet brush, right, and I can come in here and I just mix up some of the pigment that I want. And then this is my mixing tray. And I can come over here and start to lay some of that color. If I want that to be more red, I could grab a little bit of this red and mix it and blend my color to be exactly what I want it to be. Okay? When I'm all done, and this is the great part, when I'm all finished, I just close this thing up, let my pigments dry, and I'm good to go. I can put this in my book bag or my art bag and carry it with me, and I'm gone. Right? Instead of working with that wet palette of paint, it's just gone and ready to go. So here, this is another form that the tray or cake watercolors take. This is my battle horse. I love this set of watercolors. I've had this set probably for about 35 years or more. You can see it's pretty banged up and rusty in places. This is a metal tin, but it's exactly the same as the other, or much the same. You'll see we open it up. Now when we look at this, you can tell that this baby has been through some stuff. This set of paint and I have done our battles. But I've got my mixing tray over here, and again, but this is metal. Here are my dry cakes of paint. With these often, you'll be able to lift a set of paint off, and then you've got another set of pigments here. So I can paint just like this, right? I can come in here. Again, this dry pigment. So I mix it up with a little bit of water, come over to my mixing tray, and I can get it just the right consistency and mix of color that I want. All right. When I'm all done, I can put my brushes inside of here. Close this back up, and take it with me. Okay? So those are my cake or tray watercolors. The next set I'm going to talk to you about here are the watercolor pencils. Now these are kind of surprising. A lot of people don't use these because they forget about them. These are color pencils, and if you look at them, they just look like regular color pencils. But the pigment inside of here is actually the same pigment that they're using in these dry trays. Right? They're taking this caked dry pigment and they're putting it inside of these pencils instead of a pencil lead. So now I can take this, get a little scrap of paper here, right? And I can take my watercolor pencil and draw with it, all right? And it looks just like a color pencil. I could even come in with a different tone, like there's some purple, maybe I can come in with some orange here and color just like it's a color pencil. But then if I take my brush with some clean water, look what happens. As I apply the water to it, that paint melts and becomes watercolor, just like that. So these are really, really convenient, particularly when I'm going out and drawing in the field. Maybe I'm going to be doing some plein air painting, or maybe I'm going to be doing some sketching on location, and I know I want it to be a watercolor painting, or I want to get my tones down really quickly, but I don't have the ability to carry around water or palettes or all that kind of stuff. I can just put some of these in my pocket and my watercolor paper and do my sketching, lay down my basic tones to figure out what my composition is going to be, sketch them all out. I can take that back to the studio then, and then come back with the water on the brush and just kind of make that back into watercolor paint. And it becomes really, really convenient. Like I said, I use these a lot when I'm doing plein air painting. All right. The next thing I want to talk to you about are the brushes. And our brushes, this is a nice holder I have for brushes here. Protects my brushes. I'm going to open it up, and they come in several different styles I want to talk to you about. The first are the flats. I'm going to put some white paper so you can see what I'm doing here. Right? So this is a flat watercolor brush. And the reason it's called a flat is if we turn it on its edge, we can see how flat this ferrule has been crimped. What this does is it gives me a broad area that I can be brushing with. These are great for laying down large areas really, really quickly. Maybe I want a very smooth gradient, or maybe I have sky, a large area of paint that I'm trying to cover with that. And these come in different sizes, right? So I've got all these different flats, all the way down from big brushes to really, really thin brushes. Okay? The next style of brush I want to describe for you is called the filbert. And the filbert is also a flat. So if I put this here, you can see. The ferrule is crimped flat, not quite as flat as one of the flat brushes. And again, we have these long bristles. But if you'll notice here, now instead of it being cut square across the front, it's cut off in a curve. That allows me then to lay down some large areas like this, or I can take it up on the edge and just with the very tip be getting some much more fine details. So I've got several filbert style brushes here. The next style of brush I'm going to talk about are the rounds, and the rounds are like this. And these are called rounds because where the ferrule is crimped down flat, like this. With the round, Oops. With the round, the ferrule is not. It's round, and the bristles are evenly distributed all the way across, all the way around this thing. Now these are terrific because this large area of this big mass of bristles up here is a great reservoir for pigment. So I can actually hold a lot of pigment and water up in here, and I can cover wide, big, broad areas with a round brush. Round brushes are also going to come to a very, very fine point. So if we look here, you can see this super fine point that these bristles are going to come into. So I can either paint with really broad strokes this way, or I can pull it up and get a super fine tip, a very fine line. It's a lot of people are surprised with a large brush like this. I can either cover a wide area, or I could draw a hairline or paint a hairline with a brush like this. You just need a little practice with it, but they're very, very versatile, these round brushes. My favorite brushes in the world are this brand called Winsor Newton Series 7. Now, Winsor Newton Series 7 brushes are made by hand in England. The hair is fine sable, and everyone is made to exacting details. These are, to me, like the Cadillac of watercolor brushes. I love them. I've got a wide array of them. I've got them in all kinds of different sizes. These are all Winsor Newton brushes. I'm going to tell you that they're very expensive. Like a brush like this could easily cost you $25, $30. A brush like this could be $40 to $50. Even a really small Winsor Newton brush like this, you know, that could be $15, $20. But the thing is, they will last forever. You can see that they're hand lacquered handles here. I have some brushes here, like this one. Here's another one, where I don't know if you can see this, but the lacquer has completely worn off of these bristles, or not off the bristles, off of the handles. Right? If I zoom in on this, you can see the lacquer is worn off of these. I've used them so much, but the bristles are still perfect. If we look at that point that these bristles are still coming to. It's incredible. This brush that I'm holding in my hand right now, this is easily 30 years old. I've been painting with it weekly with this brush, and it still performs just as well as the day that I first bought it. It's a remarkable brush. If you want to splurge on any kind of art supply, I would go ahead, and the one thing I would spend money on, if you can, would be getting a good brush, because that's like the difference between driving an economy car and a really, really nice luxury car. They're both going to get you places. They're both going to do the job, but some are just so much more fun to work with. You know, it's just like, oh, this just feels good. They're terrific brushes. Winsor Newton. Anyway, they're my favorites. There are some really, really excellent synthetic brushes out there. Princeton makes some good ones. Grumbacher makes some good ones. But you know, it's completely up to you and what your budget is. So that's watercolor, and the different brush types. Next video will have papers on it.